Pay close attention to this because this statistic will absolutely blow you away. 66% of people with Asperger syndrome, according to a study in the United Kingdom, 66% reported ideation. That is, they had thoughts of 66%. That's two-thirds of all people in this study with Asperger syndrome were. Folks, that is absolutely positively amazing. Now, there was another 31%, and these of course overlap, but 31% of the total self-reported depression. So at the very best, we can say two-thirds of all people with Asperger syndrome, at least according to this study, are depressed to the point of, and there are more besides that who are depressed, but maybe not. All right, now we've got to, because this is important, we've got to stop and ask ourselves, well, what is going on here? What are the warning signs, the danger signs, the red flags that say, I may be in that 66%. I'm one of those people who has depression, and if I don't recognize it, it's going to creep up on me before I know it. Now, most people know they have depression because it's kind of obvious. But where does all this come from? Well, we have 6 warning flags, and number 1 is what we call isolating. And that is to say that we tend to, people with Asperger syndrome already tend to isolate. We withdraw from any social setting that we possibly can, with very few exceptions. But when you have depression, as I understand it, it becomes even more intense. It becomes, that is to say that isolating, that withdrawal from social settings becomes even more intense. So let's imagine this. You walk into a room of strangers, and you are kind and polite to everybody because you expect reciprocation, theory of mind, something akin to theory of mind. So you're going to be nice to these people, and you expect in return they're going to be nice to you. But there's something bothersome because that's not the way it works out. It's kind of like they tag you the very moment you walk in the room or shortly thereafter that there's something amiss there. There's something odd about this person. And so they reject you. Now, there may be a few exceptions, but then again, there's another exception where there's always at least one guy, it seems, one individual who is downright hateful. I mean, you can just tell it immediately. Okay, now that leads to some confusion. You're trying to be nice to these people. You're expecting reciprocation. They'll be nice back to you. You don't want to be mean to them because they will reciprocate that. Be mean back to you. It's not the way it's working. You're being kind to people. You're being polite. You're just behaving like you think a normal, typical person would behave. But they're not playing along. And this seems to be in almost every setting. I mean, you go to church, you go to school, maybe at the workplace, could be in your neighborhood, sometimes extended family gathering of some kind. It just seems to be ubiquitous, everywhere, omnipresent. Everywhere you go, you're facing the same problem. Okay, now that persistent, consistent rejection causes stress. Rejection causes stress, and what does stress cause? Well, stress could very well lead to depression. Here's why. Because as these people are rejecting you, this thought comes to mind. Well, maybe there actually is something wrong with me. I mean, if everybody everywhere that I go seems to be repulsed by my very presence, well, obviously there's something wrong with me. And so you internalize it. So what happens then is we say, well, we're thinking like this. Well, if there's something wrong with me, then I'm kind of being intrusive. I'm being kind of mean to these other people just by virtue that I'm trying to impose myself on them. I mean, if I'm such a bad person, then maybe I ought to just stay away. Now, that's part of it, but the other part is this. We know when we get into that group of people that it's going to result in emotional pain. So what to do? We just withdraw even further. I mean, why would you do something that hurts? Doesn't make sense. I mean, once in a while, you got to do something that hurts because you just have to do it. But very seldom do you, except for maybe school, very seldom are you obligated, required, mandated to be in a social setting. So you stay away from it. No, you get away from it as far as you possibly can. So that's number 2, is what we call self-loathing. Number 1 is we isolate ourselves, and then we reason, we rationalize that there's got to be a reason why all these people reject me. There must be something wrong with me. I mean, if 1 or 2 of them did it, that would make sense. But when everybody everywhere, it seems like, is rejecting me by the virtue of my very presence, then obviously there's something innately, inherently about me that is flawed. And so we begin to self-loathe ourselves. We hate ourselves. We reject ourselves, just like they are rejecting us. So far we've got 2 red flags. 2 signs that depression is encroaching upon us. Now, the 3rd sign is this: you may be sleeping less, or you may be sleeping more. Now, I don't understand the neurology behind that, but I know that it's, again, it's almost ubiquitous among people with depression, and a large number of people with Asperger syndrome are depressed, and so we could say that having trouble sleeping is a problem that accompanies Asperger syndrome, and we have seen studies that absolutely confirms that. So that is the 3rd red flag. That is the 3rd warning sign that if you are sleeping too much or sleeping too little, that could be a warning that depression is creeping into your mind. You wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning every night, 2 or 3 in the morning, and you just lay there awake, or you get up and watch television, or maybe you get on the internet, or maybe you go have a snack, make a sandwich, and you're awake until 6, 7 o'clock. Then you fall asleep. That is so typical of people with Asperger syndrome who are also encumbered by depression. So that is warning sign number 3. Number 4 is this: people with depression, people with Asperger syndrome who may be confronting depression, find themselves in confusion and being indecisive. So I refer to that as kind of a brain fog. You just can't, things that you should know. Things that you should know to do, you just can't think how to do them. It's almost like driving a car. You know, things, after you do it a while, things just become automatic. You don't really think about it. You just respond to given circumstances, whatever they happen to be. But you get yourself in a place where you're not responding correctly. Now, that could be flat out dangerous if you are driving a car, because you could have an accident. You could hurt yourself or somebody else, cause property damage. But that's just one illustration. There are many examples where we could find ourselves in a position where we are confused or indecisive. Now, sometimes when I'm working on computers, working on the computer, I should say, making videos or working on a blog or whatever I'm doing, there's some things like driving a car that are just become automatic. Then suddenly you forget. Yeah, I know how to do this, but because I've done it 1,000 times, but now I forget how to do it. That is a sign, possibly. That is a potential sign that depression is on the horizon and coming after you. Now, everybody's had this experience where you, in fact, I think everybody has this experience, where you walk through a door and you forget why you went into the room. Psychologists tell us there's something about actually walking through the door that it's kind of like doorways or brain erasers. It just takes the thought out of your mind. Then you got to go back out the door, retrace your steps so you can remember what it is you went into the room for. And that's not unique to Aspies. That's something that everybody nearly experiences. The difference is with Aspies is it's not just walking through the door. It's just about everything you do. If you have encroaching depression, you have these times of confusion and indecisiveness. And it's something very similar to that thing where you walk through a door and forget why you went into the room, only it applies, it seems, to just about everything. You can't remember. Why did I do this? Why am I doing this? I knew, but now I don't know. Okay, well, maybe depression is on its way. Maybe depression is already there. Number 5 is this: irritability and anger. Just being irritable and angry. Aspergians, as you probably know, are known for emotional outbursts that we sometimes refer to as meltdowns. Now, when we talk about meltdowns, what we are typically talking about is this point in time where stress builds up because we tend to have this flat effect where we just don't express emotions. Well, if you don't have an outlet for those emotions, they just build up inside of you. It's like inflating a balloon, inflating a tire. Eventually, it's going to blow. And that's an analogy, but yeah, that's exactly what happens. You just blow, you have a meltdown. So if you find that those times of irritability and anger, those moments of meltdowns are becoming more and more frequent or more intense or more embarrassing if you're in public, that could possibly be an indication that depression is becoming more and more severe. Use that as a red flag. By the way, when you see these red flags, just my opinion, for what it's worth, is okay, maybe you need to get help. Seriously. I mean, if you had a brain injury, you would have the good sense to get help. All right, well, think of depression as a brain injury, only it's not something external injuring your brain, it's something internal injuring your brain. Still your brain, it's still an injury. It's just as severe, it's just internal instead of external. Well, in a sense, it is external because you're responding to external influence and being rejected ultimately. So, yeah, it could be like somebody hits you on the head with a bat and it injures your brain. So you have to run off to the hospital to get surgery. Okay, with depression, I don't think you need surgery, seriously, but you do need treatment. So, who do you talk to? Well, you talk to a professional who is trained in giving treatment. How hard is that? Really simple. I encourage you to do that. All right, number 6 is this. I said there were 6. There's actually 7. My apologies. But number 6 is this. Feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, and helpless. So you lack emotional energy. Sometimes you lack physical energy. You feel weighted down. I usually feel this way in the mornings. When I get up, I know there's things I got to do, but I'm not fully awake. I'm just kind of weighted down. I got to wait till I wake up. But imagine feeling that, something similar to that, maybe not the exact same thing, but imagine feeling that way all day long or most of the day. That, in my mind, in my opinion, would be an indication, a red flag that depression is coming upon you. Number 7 is this. Lack of inspiration, lack of motivation. There are things that you like to do. There are things that you have a history of enjoy doing, but for some reason you just don't want to do it. All right, stop and think about this for a second. What makes you happy? I was going to say what gives you enjoyment, but just what makes you happy. Listening to music makes most people happy. That's why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It triggers our dopamine and makes us happy. You could have other things that make you happy besides that. Maybe being around friends, maybe your pet. What do you have? A pet dog, pet cat? Let me know in the comments. If you got a pet chicken, I'd be curious to know that. And I'd also like to know, why do you have a chicken? But whatever makes you happy no longer makes you happy. Or not as happy. And those things that motivate you to get up and do things, like maybe I like to take a walk every day, 2.5 miles. That's my thing. So sometimes I just don't feel like it. And it's not physically tired. I'm just not in the mood. I mean, I just don't have the mindset. That is a lack of motivation, lack of inspiration. I try to make at least 5 to 10 of these videos every week. Sometimes I got to tell you, as much as I enjoy doing it, and I really enjoy the editing part, I just don't have the motivation. So I have to force myself to do it. Rare occasion, but it does happen. Or the inspiration. I mean, I've got so many ideas about so many videos that I could be making, and I just can't make that many videos. There's not enough time in the day. So I have to pick and choose the very best ideas, in my opinion, that I can come up with. That is inspiration. But there are times when the inspiration just not there. I just don't want to do it. What do you like to do? Do you like to paint? Do you like to draw? You like to write? Have you ever had those moments? You like to cook? You ever had those moments when, well, maybe you like to knit. My wife likes to knit. Maybe you have those moments when, as much as you like doing those things, you just don't feel inspired to do them anymore. That creativity, that is so important to you, it's kind of like it's washed out, watered down. It's there, but just barely. That could be a red flag that you are facing a tidal wave of depression. And always the correct thing to do, in my opinion, when that happens, is to take action. I told you this a moment ago. The action is to seek professional help if you possibly can. Why would you not do that? And speaking of things that, why would you not do that? Do you see those two rectangles on the screen right now? Well, this is not the end. We're closing out this video, but there are scores and scores of other videos on this channel that have good content, my opinion. I make them. But yeah, click on those rectangles and let's keep this going.